Welcome, everybody. This is Ray Poynter here, and I'm going to be moderating the session today. So let's start moving. We've got a conversation today with Keri Vermaak from Infotools. We're going to be talking about how to empower clients to create faster insights. Hi, Keri. Great to see you.
Hi, Ray. It's great to see you too. Good to be with you today.
So before we start talking about empowering clients to create faster insights, perhaps you could just tell us a little bit about yourself?
Yes, I am a regional engagement director with Infotools. I'm based in Atlanta and look after our clients in the US as well as in Canada. And I've actually been with Infotools for about 20 years. As a company, we've been going for 30 years. So I've had some of the best years with them.
Excellent. Thanks for that. So in this title, Empowering Clients to Create Faster Insights, there are a couple of really important words there, clients and faster. So let's start by unpacking why these two are so important.
Yeah. I think when I think about the speed at which everything is happening in our world, not only for ourselves as consumers, but also for ourselves in the market research agency, it is astounding. What used to take quite a lot of time to go from identifying a need into developing research into being able to find those answers is now shortened quite quickly to the point where sometimes it doesn't even take that long. Being able to go to survey tools to identify what questions are needed, fielding that information, and coming out with some pretty quick insights. Hey, a while ago, I was still at the very beginning kind of binding proposals and using paper questionnaires. So things have changed dramatically, and our clients are feeling that as well. The competition that they're facing, the technology that's bringing more change can both facilitate solutions, by the way, as well as create challenges. The crises that everyone's facing, having to pivot and look for the silver lining in a completely new business environment. So I have a lot of empathy for our clients and especially all of us in this faster environment.
And when you say clients, who have you got in mind in particular?
I think about those that engage with us directly to help with their insights. So we work with a number of financial as well as CPG companies, and very often it's those insights departments within those clients, and as well as some agencies that we work with directly.
Great. And if we take another word out of the title, don't worry, we're not going to do the whole title one word at a time, but empowering, that's quite a good word. Why is that so important?
I think empowering is important because power is important. Independence is important. Our business was formed several decades ago with that in mind, knowing that business analysts could actually access the data themselves as opposed to having others deliver information or someone telling them. And experience is one of the best teachers. Being able to put ourselves into an opportunity to learn and to connect, being able to see patterns in the data, empowering us and ourselves with data makes us not only powerful, but independent. I think we grow in data competency as we continue to work with data ourselves. And I kind of think about it like learning to drive a car. We put our hands on the wheel, we get the accelerator and brake working. We don't actually have to build the car to be able to drive it. And I think that's where we can, and clients and ourselves need to be empowered to know how to drive and how to work with the data.
So are we talking about democratization here, do you think?
Yes, I do. And that word was not bandied around a few years ago either. But when I think of democratization, it's really whoever wants it gets it. And that sort of puts a little catch in our throats as market researchers. It's not just making it available, it's making it accessible as well. And I think market researchers can sometimes be perceived as gatekeepers from sharing that data out. But we need to push against that. We need to move to become much more facilitators. And the reason I say that is I think in that gatekeeper mode, we think, what if, what could go wrong, what errors might occur. But that mindset comes from a mindset of scarcity, of there's only so much, and if I give a little bit away, I have less. And I really don't believe that that is the way that we need to approach data. We need to be facilitators. That mindset would come out of a mindset of abundance, that, in fact, what if we actually maximized the power of insights in this data? What if we were able to share data and therefore extend power? And of course, technology facilitates the democratization of data as well. And, thankfully, I think we're at that precipice where we have the ability to do it. And as market researchers, we need to be able to have the willingness to help clients do the same.
Super. So does that mean we should make the reports and the tables available to everybody in the organization?
Oh, don't you wish it were that simple? It might be the wrong question to ask, Ray. Our global client services director, Horst Feldhauser, did a session a few weeks ago where the title of his session was "Tables Are a Waste of Time." And really they do serve a purpose, but they're not particularly efficient. It's really far better to provide access to the source of insights, and that is the data themselves. And tables can start a conversation, but that conversation tends to be a bit of a monologue, right? You can't interrogate, you can't ask further. And really, we want to be curious about data. We want to bring our expertise and the data together. Reports, okay, maybe that's blending some of the insights together. And of course, reports and tables both come from the same data DNA. But it's really getting at the source data that's going to allow the dialogue, that's going to allow us to unpeel additional questions, interact, be iterative, etc. So I wish it were that simple, but it really comes down to giving people access to the source data.
So what's the solution to empowering the client of giving them access to data?
It's really just making sure that the stakeholders in the organization have a tool through which they can access that. So it's availability and it's accessibility. We have to remember they're the experts. They know their products and services and customers and channels and competitors. And being able to make sure that they have the tool to get into the data, to bring that understanding together, making sure that that's interactive and that they can drill down even further in real time to investigate that. So really that solution is making sure that the value of empowering them to be able to do that really outweighs any risks, and having the ability to have 24/7 access without additional cost, without additional barriers and hurdles, is really the solution.
Could you perhaps give us an example of that?
Well, being able to work with the clients that we do, many of them use our tool, the Harmony platform, really as a gateway into access of their data. Remember, they're no longer, if they have access to the data, they're no longer being prevented by gatekeepers. So it's really important that they have that. We worked with a client, in fact, they're a new client to us, but during the COVID crisis, they had fielded a study on the effect of COVID on their business. And that was during April and May. Our engagement started in July, and so we quickly put that data into a platform that would allow them to have that access. They were able to harvest new insights that the report really didn't go into that level of depth. They decided to do an additional wave, and unfortunately COVID is continuing. But using that in our Harmony platform means that they'll be able to even trend some of those changes over time and really look at how their consumers are researching their data differently, purchasing their products and services differently. It's creating a really wonderful synergy for them.
Why do you think some agencies worry or are concerned about empowering their clients?
Yeah, I think there's probably two things. There may be a stated reason, and then there may be a deeper reason. So a stated reason might be that they mistrust, that perhaps clients will not know how to use the data properly. And that could be a rational fear, right? They may know the guardrails associated with the data, and it may be fairly complex. But perhaps a deeper reason is that it would be somewhat of a relinquishment of power, right? So they would have to be able to make that data accessible, and it's incumbent upon them to make it easy to use, as easy as possible as well. But by monopolizing the data, they can continue to charge for additional services or slices of the data or tables or additional reports. But again, remember, those are just monologues. They're really not dialogues. And I would really encourage agencies to try to get over that fear.
So what sort of changes do you think agencies need to make to empower their clients?
Well, I think if they use the Harmony platform more, that would be great.
And perhaps beyond, in terms of mindsets and attitudes?
That's right. That's right. Making data available and making it accessible. You could say it's available, but sometimes you have to build the staircase to get to it as well. So it really is vital for them to understand that this is a movement forward, and they should be willing to help take the client on that journey as opposed to resisting it. And I have a feeling too that the machinery of the data processing, and even to some extent the production of tables, and to some extent further the production of reports, will be taken up by automated processes. And for agencies to understand that they can no longer add value at that rung of the value ladder, they'll have to move up and figure out, and it's all of us being able to challenge ourselves how to find other ways of offering value within those relationships. As I said, technology can be sometimes a solution and sometimes an impetus for uncomfortable change.
So we shouldn't give the impression that all of the problems are on the side of the agency. So thinking about the clients, what changes in activity and mindset do they need to make to really make use of these changes?
And that is such a fair point. It's easier to perhaps be spoon-fed, to have it plated up and ready to digest. And I think clients have to be willing to do investigation, to embrace the value of the discovery process, to learn about asking questions that engage the data with their experience and bring that to bear, to try to make connections and see those patterns. And of course, they could use Harmony more, and that would help them do that. I also think it should be an expectation that they ask agencies for raw data files so that they could interact with those files, whether through Harmony or through other tools, so that they can have access without additional cost or time implications.
Yeah, I'm always amazed when clients are willing to accept a PDF of a report or a presentation or a data set, because it's pretty well non-accessible, non-drillable, etc.
Yeah, exactly. And even tables, as many as you can create. We had a client who would invariably experience an executive coming with another question, a slightly different angle, and of course she'd have to go back to the agency for additional set of tables. And by the time that happened and the tables were provided, the executive's question was really no longer valid. He'd moved on. So I agree that it is a very static view and does not take into account the power of the investigative nature that data could have.
If we take this phrase, democratization, as well, presumably it's not just the agency empowering the insight team, but on the client side, the insight team has to empower ops, marketing, product development, HR, the C-suite, etc.
Yes, that is very true. And so what we've seen as well, it's kind of interesting to me that during this crisis, so many people have found themselves kind of, without work or furloughed. But, perhaps companies could rethink to do reskilling and look at ways that additional skills could be developed to continue to expand and extend that resource.
So just finally, before we turn to the Q&A, what about data lakes, insight hubs, these sorts of facilities?
Yeah, that's an interesting question. It's something we're hearing a lot. And in fact, we're actively working with a client on a data lake. And so having some firsthand experiences has colored my perception somewhat. I see it, and in theory, it's great because it's what we've talked about. It's owning the data, it's gathering it, and it's taking not just market research data, but many different types of data. So whether it's temperature or advertising impressions, unit case sales, etc. And the concept is right, and in fact, it's even secure, keeping it within a client's contained environment. But what we've seen is just because market research data can be put into a data lake or data hub, it doesn't necessarily mean that the client teams are able to optimize it. And market research data has so many unique features, as you know, between learning how the data has to be weighted or perhaps projected or different algorithms applied or bases applied so that the right reporting is done. And what we find is that the data hubs are often looked after by non-market research people. They are looked after by highly trained data scientists or folks that really know the BI tools. But if they think that being able to handle market research data is the same as others, that assumption is so false. And in our current experience, after a client had taken about 8 months to try to figure out how to work with a multi-level market research data set, they came to us because they really couldn't get it to work within their data hub. So we're finding that it's really vital to require tools that are specifically architected from the ground up to work with market research data, to be part of that data lake engagement. And we hope that we're going to be successful with this client as we work together on their data lake.
Absolutely. I mean, I always wonder about the language data lake. It's not something which implies accessibility, the ability to draw from it in lots of a variety of ways. It's kind of got this big, lumpy sort of sense about it.
And you'd think that you could fish from the lake.
Yeah, but if you ever tried fishing in a lake, you're normally not putting the hook where the fish are biting.
Right. And if you need several fish to come together to form the absolute best catch, you're hard pressed to do that from sitting on the side of the bank. And it's quite a conundrum to think that on one hand it's a good idea, but on the other hand it's still in its infancy to be able to see how this data is going to be interactive and layered in a way that makes insights a lot more compelling.
Well, I think that's probably another discussion for another day, because do you start by being human-centric, i.e. what do people want to do with information, or by being data-centric, we want to hold it in a data lake? So thanks for that, Keri. That's been fantastic. And we're going to have a look now and see what questions we've got for you.
Great.
And in fact, just before the questions, and we need to switch the way we're using our cameras now, so you should be able to see both Keri and myself in a much smaller version than you've just seen us. Keri's brought along with her today a case study, so we're squeezing that in too. So just checking, Keri, you've see the slides now that I've changed the way I'm displaying them?
Yes, I can see the first slide.
Okay, just tell me when you want to advance that.
Okay, great. Yes, so thank you so much for letting me share this about our engagement with Samsung. Ray, you can go ahead and just move to the next slide and we'll just get right into the details. Of course, I'm sure many of us would be hard pressed to think of another industry besides consumer electronics that is as fast paced, as driven by innovation, lots of competition. I think about some of the innovative and smart home appliances that are on the market now. And of course, these are vital. My washing machine is getting more use than ever now that I'm home all the time. And all the high-tech mobile and entertainment devices. So this is a really competitive industry that Samsung is in. Their consumption patterns are highly influenced as well by competition, social media, new innovations, and the rest. But when the insights team was looking to speed its time to insights, that team knew that they needed to also look to technology to be able to assist them with this. So really the challenge was, how can they speed this time? Their existing processes, because they were based on a lot of PowerPoint delivery requirements or tables, they were manual, they were clunky, as we've already talked about, expensive and time consuming as well. And I kind of think about our friend Sisyphus, who, according to Greek mythology, was destined for eternity to keep rolling that boulder up the hill only to let it roll back down again. And it's frustrating for all of us to have to start from scratch or to have to do slow processes from time in and time out. So if you could go to the next slide, Ray. As we, began to look at their need for speed, Infotools provided a really vital solution in our Harmony platform. So the Harmony platform is a data all the way through delivery in one environment. We were able to bring together multiple data sources for them. And of course, giving them access to their own data meant they could leverage that. They could do their own custom variables and views. It provided that real-time insights. What they also found effective was, as a insights team, they needed, as analysts, to be able to do deep dive views. But they also wanted some of the more common views to be made available, to be democratized throughout the organization. And we were able to do that through interactive dashboards with limited numbers of filters that users could also interact with. So as it worked out, they had a number of studies kind of rearing to go. And we've, in the last few months, done this for 7 key initiatives, trained the team. They can then perform independently, but we continue to support them because some of the projects that they have are fairly complex and require some customized solutions. You can go to the next slide, Ray. And just a few more points I'd like to make on the case. Oh, did we skip? There we go. Thank you. So really the result was, for them moving into Harmony, the team, because they had direct access, they could quickly respond to executive questions. They could identify and dig out some of their own insights. They were able to reduce their reliance on agencies from a reporting perspective. And I think it's really helped those relationships as well, because those agencies have also then looked for ways to upskill their value in this equation. They are delighted to have access 24/7 to their data and have already provided much faster results to executives' questions. As I mentioned before, the platform allows the use of creating their own custom variables, because as you know, once the study is produced, as you have that dialogue with the data, sometimes another angle is required to view the insights from. So if you could then just continue with this last slide, Ray. And we're really honored to have the endorsement of Samantha Paulino, who's one of our key contacts at Samsung. And she notes that because they previously had relied on, they had some BI tools, but also heavily reliant on just simply tables and PowerPoint decks. And we've been able to, get that data to them much faster. And we're really delighted to be able to be that team that's providing support to them. So Ray, thank you for letting me share that case study. Some of their initiatives involve tracking studies, as well as one-time sort of segmentation studies. I think the beauty of the way they're working with their trackers is now that we've set up some of those visualizations within Harmony, every time a new data set comes in, it automatically flows through to update visualizations or stories. And so we've really reduced that time from data input to the ability to do simple and quick reporting.
Great. And with that, we will go to the Q&A. We've got one in already. I invite other people to type them into chat too. And the first one doesn't start off as a question, but it's a fantastic point. So I'm going to read it out and we might just discuss it briefly whilst other people are putting in their questions. So having used Harmony for several years and some of the points that Keri is making about the unique qualities of MR data, I have found handing over Harmony to the wider population within the company to lead to a lot of follow-up work, confirming that the analysis has been done properly. In Harmony, one has access to multiple sample bases and one can get very different results when you do different sample bases. Because we are short-handed, the democratization proved to be more troublesome than perhaps we expected. We needed better guardrails in the use of data, which is probably available now. So just before Keri chips in, I think whilst I would take everything on board that's said there, there isn't actually a choice. We do have to democratize because otherwise people will go round us. But Keri, maybe on some of the specifics in that.
Yeah, thank you so much for that comment too. And it's great to know that you've had some wonderful experiences with our tool. I think the challenges of allowing people to drive the car, teaching them how, and you're absolutely right, is trying to figure out ways to simplify and create guardrails. One of the features within the platform allows users to set sample size thresholds so that we really can guardrail users from not reporting information where sample size is too low. And that's done by a number of different indicators. So we continue to try to think about ways that users would sometimes just casually interact with the data, but we still want to protect the integrity of what they report and be sure that it's based in a very robust nature of the data as well. So we do continue to look toward ways to innovate that interaction and secure it for a more democratized use that really helps ensure accuracy and confidence with the data that they're interacting with.
And we've got a question here about scale. So Samsung is a really large organization, international, multiple studies, you mentioned tracking. How would this work for a smaller client?
Mm-hmm. What we've done is we also have a very much DIY opportunity with Harmony, so that we work with agencies, sometimes fairly small agencies themselves, and we can teach you how through an administrative license to the tool, how to do your own upload of the data. You can then shape it in a way that works best for your reporting, or simply focus on the areas that you want to have reportable for clients. So there's a really wide range, and I appreciate you mentioning that because we do have a number of very large clients that rely on our platform, but for them we also offer additional services as they often don't have the time to do all of the data shaping and structuring that they would like to. But I would love for you to contact me. I could definitely tell you more about how to make it powerful, even for smaller organizations or those of you who are serving clients who need quick visualization or easy to use dashboards.
And we talked briefly about data lakes. We've got a question here, and this is the last question we have at the moment. So if anybody out there wants to ask a question, now's a good time to type it in. The market research data may end up in Harmony or another system. What about linking through to the data lake? Because there's still going to be an expectation that data doesn't live in silos. This is, along with democratization, not getting rid of the silos is probably the second biggest of the buzzwords we're hearing.
Yeah, it really is. And it's really true. Having the data in the data lake is really one thing, being able to provide linkages to it. So we could link through sometimes through time periods. So for instance, one of our clients is a beverage manufacturer, and they want to understand how temperature changes or has an impact or a correlation on beverage consumption or beverage frequency or certain categories of beverages. But being able to link through time period analyses is a very helpful thing in that case. Something else that happens with data lakes in general, the data needs to be aligned well, and sometimes that requires some additional programmatic access. Being able to work within a data lake as well as extract it has also required us, for instance, to build some APIs that help us to not only address or bring the data into a tool like a BI tool, but also transform it. Sometimes the data lies there as flat files, and we really need to put that into a different hierarchy or respondent-based file. But we're learning on data lakes, and we've got several clients now that we're really trying to understand their needs in. So I'm really interested if you have any other experiences. We're very keen to learn and continue to try to upskill ourselves in this area.
Great, thanks, Keri. And that's taken care of all of the questions. So thank you for those people who've asked questions. Thank you for those who are still online. We've just got a little bit of housekeeping announcements now. Oh, sorry. So we've got another question in here, which we will let's go back to Q&A page. Can you share more about how Harmony can be used by research agencies to save time in data processing to basic reporting so that the focus is on higher level client needs? I think this really comes back to the point you made about we can't add value at that bottom rung. So we really need to automate that process. So what can you help agencies do to make that bit easier and to make the next rung accessible?
Yeah, I think agencies can use a tool like Harmony to provide really fast insights. So once you get the original, a set of data, that can be ingested into the tool. Usually there are a few executive questions that need to be answered quickly, and without necessarily having to go through a lot of data processing for the entire tool, you could still have access to data to spin off some of those quick answers. It allows you as well to start to work with the language that you would use as you report back to the client. Very often there are additional constructions that you would want to do as an agency to be sure that you're addressing specific needs. So what we've seen is it speeds the processing part for the agency as well. Then what you could do is all within the same tool, be able to share out specific stories, views. You could set the filters that your clients would be most inclined to use initially, and all of a sudden get them accessing the data in a more real-time basis. Now, if the client can do that, they will also feed back to you perhaps even more vital questions that you can then fulfill through additional reporting services that you would offer. So those are just a few ideas that I can think of.
That's great. And thanks for that extra question. Great answer, Keri. Thank you. Mm-hmm. And with that, I would say thank you. Keri, any last words?
Yes, I would just welcome you to reach out, find me on LinkedIn. And also just I want to take a minute to express my thanks, and thanks on behalf of Infotools too for all that you do. The way that you're connecting people, all of us who want to leverage innovations for market research and the future of our industry. I just want to say thank you.
Oh, thank you so much. That's so nice. And all of you out there, please stay safe. And I hope to see you at a future webinar. So bye for now.
Bye.